Welcome to part one of my 9-year ownership review of the Citroen C6 3.0 injection petrol engined car. So as you can see, it's a large car, a E-Class BMW 5 Series size of car. So I'm going to start with the exterior and we'll have a look at some of the detail. As you can see, as an overall, it's got quite a swoopy shape. And definitely a fastback look. You'd think it was a hatchback, but they've been very clever the way they've done this treatment here. People think it's just about the triple curvature, I think, because it curves that way, that way. This glass here, which is quite incredible, it's left over from the Citroen C6, but it's not just about the glass. It's so that they can get the boot lid opening to there. So if I unlock the car, because I locked it just to get it on a slightly lower stance, because when you go to get in, it raises itself slightly. But if you go to that, you've actually got a boot opening. Sorry about all the junk, but so it's not a hatchback. But in terms of the overall shape, you've got this heightened bit for the indicator here, which just gives you a better proportion than having the whole boot lid higher. Means you've got more rear screen to see out of because it's not so slim, but yet you've got this fastback style buttress thing here. Now, one other thing you might be noticing as I'm looking at it is this detail here. I had a friend, Pete, who told me it was Art Deco. He was very into Art Deco, and yes, it clearly is. So you've got that kind of detail there. Also, I think that is something to do with that styling. And then if I take you back to the front of the car, you'll see it on the headlights, which, as you can see, are yellowing slightly from the they could do with being polished and maybe re-lacquered, but these bits here as well. So, and possibly this whole thing here, because Citroen has a thing from the 20s where it's all about that kind of Art Deco thing. So that's an interesting touch there. Now, as you can see, the flanks are very smooth sided. There's no real detail. Yes, you've got this line running from the bumper through there, and then it fades out as you get to the back. But all in all, it's a very clean sided car. Now, looking at the proportions again, you've got the rear wheels are set very far back. So whilst this is based on the Peugeot 407 Citroen C5 platform, it's actually a longer wheelbase than the 407 Estate, and you can see how far back the rear wheel is, and it doesn't really interfere with the rear door, which means of course the glass goes all the way down. So and I'll just mention something about that, of course, because it's frameless windows. So you could say this was one of the earlier four-door coupe cars alongside the Mercedes CLS. It gives you that sense of that kind of curved line. Almost looks like the headroom in the back would be poor, but I don't find it that it's poor. Not had any complaints. So the rear wheels are set fairly far back, so it's a long wheelbase, and it's got a fairly short back to it, so there's not much overhang at the back. You've got a lot more overhang at the front, so let's bring it back out, which would be normal on a front wheel drive car. So you've got a transverse V6, so the V6 is headed across there, V, and then the gearbox is on the far side, and then the drive shafts run probably just behind the sump, I guess, for this side of the car anyway. So yeah, a fairly short back car. The boot is quite low, and of course you've got this active spoiler here which pops up at around 50 and then extends further at about 80. I've seen that happen when I took this somewhere else. Yeah, but the boot is quite a low boot, and of course the observant among you might have noticed that it's actually an LPG equipped car, so the tank for that is a toroidal donut under the boot floor where the spare wheel would have been, and I've got a space saver tyre that I've chucked in the back. So anyway, coming round, I do like this the script, the C6 script. Works really nicely in the Citroen. Again, I think it's maybe tones of Art Deco or something. You've got moderate amounts of chrome, so chrome across the back there, and I do love these exhausts. And of course, most of these cars were diesels. This is one of 26 petrol ones in the country, whereas there are something like 600 remaining diesels in the country. So of course the downturned tips are more of a diesel car thing, but I quite like them. It's a nice touch. Now if you look at a dark car, the chrome of course stands out more and it's quite elegant. Maybe there's a kind of maroony colour which looks good, and there's the black which is more presidential, because of course these cars were created for really for the President of France. So I think the total run was only 26,000, so you know, you're talking not crazy. I mean, a Lamborghini Gallardo was something like 14,000, so it's more than that, but it's a rare car. I don't know when you'd have last seen one on the road, but anyway, coming round, so the alloy wheels, Rocca Strada. Now these were available with a diamond cut wheel, but I've never seen one. Extremely rare. You don't see them ever, but that's the standard wheel. It wouldn't really make sense to put a different wheel on this car. 18-inch wheel, 245, so pretty wide tyres, so you've got a really good stance. If you're behind one on the motorway or something, it's quite an aggressive look, really, what with the active aero spoiler up and everything. So yeah, interesting car. Now, so I've shown you the exterior detail, and I'm not sure really there's anything else to speak of on the outside of the car. Oh, you're kidding me! Somebody scraped my new bumper. Oh, that's frustrating, isn't it? Anyway, such is life. I'm not sure what's happened there. Right, okay, now let's get into the interior. So this is part one, so I am going to do a part two, which will be more about the driving experience, but I'll show you the interior first. Now, one of the pet things I like to show, apart from the frameless windows, are the door pockets, and that's a lovely action there. That always surprises people, they're not used to that. You've got the usual array of goodies, you know, memory seats, etc. So now this is piano black, and you've got that kind of detail through the interior, the strip above there. Now on a exclusive spec, they're in some kind of fake wood. I imagine it's fake anyway, and not so wonderful. Excuse my cable there for the car, and my adapter there for the dash cam. I've got a very unusual Garmin 210-degree viewing angle dash cam, and I'll put this in a playlist, and it will have some driving footage, just pure driving footage, but then I'll part two will hopefully be driving the car and talking about that. So I do love this dashboard, that kind of away from the driver look. It's nice and wide and open, and it feels luxurious. It's an old-fashioned kind of dash in a way, especially when you start looking at all the buttons on the center console. This being the Lineage spec, which is a slightly lower spec car than the full, it's the mid-spec car, has a smaller screen up there, but I've still got full leather on this one. Let me just come round and go on to the passenger side. So yeah, you've got piano black around the gear stick and then across the rest here. So yeah, it's an interesting look. I do have a cracked screen, which is unfortunate, and of course these screens are hard to come by. They're specifically right hand drive screens because you've got the rain sensor up here. Yeah, there's my Garmin unit just there. But yeah, you've got a center console there, electrically activating parking brake. Well, it's not automatic either in turning it on or release. To release it, you have to have your foot on the brake or on the accelerator. Anyway, right, let me just pop you in the back here. So one of the other things about the exclusive spec is they come with reclining rear seats, which obviously moves as you recline them. The front edge goes forward, so you actually lose leg room when you recline them, which is a bit odd. So you'd have to, well, not great, but they don't fold. So these are split folding seats, which is much better. I mean, when I bought this, had 2 teenage kids, and definitely wanted a practical car. So it was useful to have something like that. So again, we've got these door bins there, and yeah, it's a nice feeling, nice looking car. I'm really happy with it. I can't believe I'm getting rid of it, but I live too far from the Citroen specialist now. I moved, and it's all going, and we're going down from 3 cars to 1 car, so we're going to get rid of this one. So anyway, thank you for watching, and there'll be more on the driving experience shortly. I'll tell you what, we'll open the bonnet while we're here, and so the release is obviously on the left side, which would be where the driver would be, and most of these Citroen C6s. And we've got hydraulic struts on the bonnet, and of course one of the other features of the bonnet on this car is that it's low to the top of the intake manifold. So what they've got is they've got special explosive things somewhere which pops the bonnet up in an accident, I guess at the back, but I don't know where they work or anything. But anyway, so as you can see, we've got the LPG conversion on there, so they're port injection into each of the inlet manifold runners, or whatever you want to call them. But now here's an interesting one. Had to replace that recently because it's split. These new caps have a hole in them, and these are redesigned as well compared to the earlier cars. So my car would have been produced about 2 years into production, maybe 1.5 years into production, but later cars had a modified one of these. So this is the reservoir for the LDS, the hydraulic liquid that runs the suspension. And if you were to put this up on a lift, take it off its wheels, and didn't have it in full height position, it'll tend to scrunch that down. And 1.5 years ago, or 2 years ago, this actually collapsed and broke. So I needed to get a new one, which was great to do that. So this comes off nice and easily. And in fact, you can check your camshaft condition really nicely, and after 82,000 miles the camshaft is looking great in there in terms of wear. So I'm really happy with the way this engine has gone. Yeah, like I say, a transverse V6. There's normally an intake thing over there, that's in the boot. I need to reattach it. I have had some kind of coolant leak, just a vapour coming into the engine bay since I've had the car actually, and I don't know what it is. I've had a top hose changed, I think, thinking it might have been that, but it wasn't. But it's not a big deal. It means I keep the coolant nice and clean and fresh, so that's okay. So what we're seeing up here, of course, are the hydraulic spheres that are the springs for the suspension, and there we go. Now, one of the things about this gearbox is it's worth changing the oil on them, but it's very expensive to get a full oil change, so you do partial oil changes yourself. And I actually use a pump to pump out the oil out through the dipstick when I'm changing the engine oil, and I could use that to pump oil out of there as well. So I've done that. Worth doing. Anyway, what other maintenance issues have I had, or things to do? Have I replaced hydraulic lines? These are still on the original spheres, which are 14 years old now. They're amazing. The membrane they use really doesn't cause them to lose pressure at all. I've had 2 new front hydraulic struts because, of course, the weight of the engine is that end, so they get more wear. They were hard to get hold of. One of those had to come from Poland or something. I'm in Britain, of course, England, and but I haven't had to replace them at the back, much less worry about there. I do need to replace a hydraulic pipe, one on each side and one that runs down the length of the car as well. So yeah, no, it's been a good car really. When I moved house about 5 years ago, I discovered a letter that I'd received from Citroen UK saying, "Dear Sir, thank you for your interest in the new Citroen C6." So I'd obviously had an interest in them from when they were newly released in 2005, and hadn't got on to buying one. Bought this in 2014, May I think it was. So I've had this over 9.5 years now, which is the longest I've ever had a car. I had a Citroen XM before this for 7 years, which I'm very happy about. So any other things to consider? Well, hopefully I'll pick up on some stuff when I drive the car around and talk to you about certain aspects of the driving experience. So yeah, well, thank you for watching. Do subscribe. To be honest, the channel is mainly model car reviews, but there's the odd this and that now and then. So thank you for watching, and do catch the rest of this playlist and part 2 of this video, which I'll probably release at exactly the same time as this video, so you'll be able to see the driving experience now. I'll put a note up at the end, and there'll be a link in the description, of course. Thank you for watching.